Hello and welcome back to the Macajohns channel, where I, John, will try and give you some recipes, tips, tutorials, and tricks on how to make delicious and aesthetic macarons like these. Today I'm going to be showing you a no-frills, straightforward recipe to make a basic macaron shell like this. If that's what you're here for, stay tuned. And as always, if you like this content, feel free to like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments below if it's helpful for you, if there's anything that I can clear up. So to start off, macaron shells are essentially just cookies made from mixing meringue with almond flour and some amount of sugar. If you've looked into macarons before, you might have heard people throw around terms like French, Swiss, or Italian macarons. These refer to the type of meringue used in the macaron equation. French is typically known as the least stable of the meringues, but also the one that requires the least amount of effort and preparation. It involves making your meringue by adding sugar directly to your egg whites while you're whipping them. Next is Swiss meringue, where you heat a mixture of egg whites and sugar together and then proceed to whip that. Finally is Italian meringue, which involves making a hot sugar syrup and adding it to your egg whites while whipping. I personally use Italian meringue. It's what I first learned to do and what has the most consistent results for me personally. For the equipment needed, I'm going to list off what I use, but do note that these are not necessarily the only materials one could use to make macarons too. For example, I use a stand mixer to whip the meringue, but if all you have is a hand mixer, you should be able to accomplish the same task. I use a food processor, a thermometer, and a digital scale for weighing out ingredients. I also have my KitchenAid stand mixer, and then a piping bag with a circular Wilton 2A piping tip. With all those in order, it's on to the ingredients. For this recipe, you're going to want 90 grams of egg whites, 120 grams of almond flour, 120 grams of powdered sugar, 120 grams of granulated sugar, and 31 grams of water. Optional ingredients here are cream of tartar, gel food coloring, and powdered food coloring. Now that the ingredients are laid out, it's time to start assembling the pieces we'll use to make the macarons. Start by adding your 120 grams of granulated sugar and 31 grams of water into a saucepan. Then give it a little stir to make sure that the sugar is evenly incorporated into the water. Then you're going to want to split your 90 grams of egg whites into two 45-gram portions. One will be used to make the meringue, and the other will be used in an almond paste. Afterwards, you're going to want to put both your almond flour and powdered sugar into your food processor. Then, using your food processor, you're going to want to pulse for a couple seconds at a time, around 12 times. This step is to try and thin down any large chunks of almond flour or powdered sugar that may be present. Then you're going to want to sift your almond flour and powdered sugar mix into a medium-sized bowl. Add your first 45-gram portion of egg whites to this and mix until you have a thick paste. If you're trying to make colored shells, before adding your egg whites to the almond flour mix, put some of your food coloring into it. Then toss a towel or some saran wrap over your almond paste so that it doesn't dry out, and then we're moving on to the meringue. First, you're going to want to add your second 45-gram portion of egg whites into the bowl of your stand mixer, and then whisk it by hand to get it a little frothy. I do this step because generally the whisk on my stand mixer has trouble whipping with this little amount of material if I don't whip it prior. This would also be the step to add your 1/4 teaspoon of cream of tartar to the egg whites if you want to use it. Then, you're going to want to start mixing your egg whites on a medium speed. I use around 5 or 6 on a KitchenAid, until you reach soft peaks and the meringue is nice and bubbly. At these lower speeds, this can take a bit of time. When you start to approach soft peaks, you're going to want to start boiling the sugar water mixture we prepared earlier. You're going to want to shoot for it being around 240 degrees Fahrenheit before taking it off the heat. With your hot sugar mixture, you're going to want to slowly pour it into your stand mixer with the speed bumped up to medium-high. I use around 8 on my KitchenAid. Let the mixer whip until you reach stiff peaks. One marker that people use for telling when you have stiff peaks is that when you pull out some of the meringue, it is able to stay up in the air and hold its own without melding back into the rest. Another trick people use is that when you flip your bowl upside down, no meringue should be seeping or falling out of it. Next up is Macronage, where we will carefully mix together the almond paste and meringue until it reaches a lava-like consistency. To start, you're going to want to put a spoonful of your meringue into your almond paste and then incorporate the two well together. Then you're going to add the rest of your meringue and use a spatula to carefully mix the two together. The general idea is that you're going to want to try and do long sweeps around the perimeter of the bowl and then bring it back in through the middle. You don't want to be too rough with this because it can knock the air out of the meringue that we worked so hard to make in the first place. Keep doing this until the batter starts to become like a slow flowing lava, where if you put some on your spatula, it will fall off the spatula in a ribbon-like way and slowly meld back into the rest of the batter. A lot of perfecting Macronage can just come down to getting more experience with doing it, and getting a feel for when you've undermixed or overmixed the batter. Don't feel too defeated if you mess up your first few times. Also of note is that some people use a stand mixer on the lowest speed setting to do this Macronage step, but I personally haven't found too much consistent results with it yet. With your batter all good to go, it's time to start preparing to pipe them out. Take the piping bag from earlier and cut the tip off the bottom such that your piping tip can comfortably fit and stick out of the bottom. Then, you're going to want to add your batter to the bag with the tip inserted in it, and then twist the back of the bag to get ready to pipe. A trick I use here to help me out is to put the bag in a tall glass so that you don't have to awkwardly fumble with the bag in your hands while you fill it with batter. To get ready to pipe, line your baking sheet with Teflon, parchment paper, or silicone mats. Your baking sheet should ideally be a flat cookie sheet without lips on the edges, as those can affect the flow of heat and the rising of the macarons. If you only have a lipped tray, that's okay, just flip it upside down and pipe your macarons on that side. Unfortunately, my camera decided to cut filming while I did this step for these plain macaron shells, so that's why I'm using footage from my boba macaron piping. But the concept is the same here. You're going to want to pipe such that your bag is as perpendicular to your sheet as possible. And then when they reach around 1.5 inches in diameter, you're going to want to flick your bag a little bit to stop piping and move on to the next shell. Do this until you run out of batter. With them all piped out, tap your sheet on the table a couple times to get any trapped air bubbles to surface. And feel free to pop any stubborn ones that are remaining on the top of your shells with a toothpick. Then, let your macarons dry until they have a nice layer on top, such that when you gently touch or run your finger over them, none of it sticks to your finger. That's when you know it's ready to bake. The amount of time it takes to dry is completely dependent upon your ambient environment, but some people do use a method of drying their macarons in the oven to circumvent this. I can't personally say much on it though, because I don't trust my oven in the slightest. While your macarons are drying, make sure to preheat your oven. I use 310 to 315 degrees Fahrenheit for baking my macarons, but this is also highly dependent upon your oven. Mine is old and not the best for circulating heat, so I just had to trial and error until I found something that worked for me. When your macarons are all dry, throw them in the oven and let them bake. The baking time will also be dependent upon your oven, but I like to check them at 10 minutes and closely monitor them from 20 to 30 minutes. A test I've come to do is the jiggle test, where I choose a macaron and gently try and wiggle the top of the shell. If it wiggles, it still has some time left in the oven. Once it stops wiggling, I usually give it a minute or two more and then take them out. And with that, your macarons are finished. Just let them cool and peel them off whatever surface you chose to bake them on, and store them in a container until you make your fillings. Thanks for watching, and feel free to let me know what you think or if there's anything that I can clear up in the comments below. You can get some ideas on fillings to do from the other videos on my channel or from the other macarons I've done on my Instagram. And I plan on continuing to put up tutorials and recipes for making and decorating a variety of macarons. As always, if you like this content, feel free to press that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if it was helpful to you.